Hello and welcome. This is part 2 of the fairest among all women, King Solomon's Black Bride. So, I'm going to pick it up right here. Continue for our Black History Bible. Her use of the words, "Look not upon me because I am black," did not mean she did not want to be seen. She was pleading with the ladies of Jerusalem not to look down on her in her disdainful manner because of her dark skin. She was asking for them to view her as they would want to be viewed. Look not upon me. Don't look down on me because I am black. For I am black as the tents of Kedar. I am blacker than King Solomon's curtain. So you women of Jerusalem, don't look down on me for this reason. She says, ladies of Jerusalem, not to look down on her in a disdainful manner because of her skin. This lovely maiden had been exercised by the wrath of racism, which she suffered even from those in her own family. The same prejudice this maiden suffered due to her black skin color is still with us thousands of years later. European culture has a history of preferring the whitest of the white race over others who were not as white. Long before the rise of Adolf Hitler, Northern Europeans thought themselves better than the Southern Europeans, whose features were not quite as Nordic blonde and blue-eyed as Northern Europeans. During this time of the Gentiles, whenever the European influence was gone, the descendants of Japheth draw their color line in the sand, and the nation followed suit. Today in South America, the darker-skinned Hispanics are being discriminated against. In Russia, the darker-skinned Russians, although white, are complaining of discrimination. Among African Americans in the early 20th century, many black men would not allow their daughters to court dark African American men for fear that their darker skin would generate discrimination and would prevent them from being good providers for their black daughters. In India, the darker person's skin, the lower that person ranked in society. The Dalits of India, who were known for their very dark skin, were called untouchables. Blacks in America in the early 20th century were also viewed as socially untouchable. Nevertheless, although black and discriminated against, this black maiden statement of being black but comely was akin to the anthems of the 60s, of which Black is Beautiful. And that's the Songs of Solomon 1 and 5. Although the revisionists of biblical history downplay her statement, this black woman, like James Brown, the King of Soul, stated loud that she was black and she was proud. Damn right. Damn right. She said, I am black, but I am comely. Told him to heal up with high regard, embracing her authenticity, knowing who she was, authentic in herself, having enough pride in herself to hold her head up, to speak up for herself, and not being ashamed of who she was. For she had a conscious awareness which allowed her to step into her beauty. For she had beauty within, which allowed her to stand proudly with her back erect and her crown up tight. She said, I am black as the tents of Kedar. I am black as Solomon's curtains. Don't look down on me because the sun has touched my skin and made me blacker. Don't treat me less than. Don't look down on me, for I am still of royalty. For she was a sister of those with the lighter complexions. So she was what we call the black sheep of the family. Check that reference. Keep it moving. Okay. Who is the fairest of them all? In the fairy tale, when Snow White's stepmother asked, Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all? The mirror answered, Snow White, who, according to the unrevised Brothers Grimm fairy tale, was a maiden named after the color of her skin. However, in the real life, when the wisest of men asked himself, in reality, in the fairy tale, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? The mirror answered Snow White. And in the Brothers Grimm fairy tale, it is expressed to believe that this was supposed to continuous with the contented color of her skin. But in the reality of it all, when asked by men, in reality, I want you to check it, I'm going to say it 3 times. Hot damn. In reality, when asked by the man, this is what was said. However, in real life, when the wisest of men asks himself, who is the fairest of them all? His mind did not entertain a Snow White figure at all. This wisest of men selected a black beauty and crowned her fairest among the women. The wisest man of all crowned a black beauty as fairest of them all. The wisest man in the world crowned himself a black beauty as fairest. For she was the virtuous woman. Check this out. O thou fairest among women, go thy way. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. Thou art all fair, my love. There is no spot in thee. What is thy beloved more than another beloved? O thou fairest among women, whilst is thy beloved gone, O thou fairest among women. When things are mentioned twice in Scripture, it is to establish that matter as a fact. So what we think when Solomon calls his black maiden fair and fairest of all women over 7 times, this black woman must have been the most beautiful woman in Scripture. For no other woman's beauty was praised as much in Scripture as the woman who is said of herself that she was black but beautiful. When Solomon's queens and concubines saw this black beauty, they also praised her for her beauty. Songs of Solomon, verses 4 through 9. The Authorized King James Version of the Bible was written in Great Britain in 1611, making this Bible considerably older than the United States of America. In the Authorized King James Version of Scripture, when the Brits used the word fair, it meant beauty rather than color. Although the word fair had its origins in referencing beauty during the days of American slavery, white Southerners changed its definition from that which indicated beauty to that which indicated white skin, as in fair-skinned. How you like that vitamin? Let's keep it rolling. However, the King James Version of the Bible shows us that when the wise King Solomon employed the word fair towards his maiden, he did not mean white skin in the least. Solomon used the words fair and fairest as descriptive degrees of beauty of his black lover. He repeatedly referred to his black love interest as thou fairest among women, the pinnacle of beauty. Solomon did not employ a redefined Americanized version of the word fair as in the skin, meaning white. Keep it rolling. Otherwise, he would have been saying, thou whitest among women. The lovesick Solomon used the phrase fairest among women in describing his swiftly maiden as a black beauty indeed. Many Christians today would have been shocked and bewildered to learn that one entire book in the Holy Bible is solely dedicated to an interracial relationship between a single black woman and a married white Jew. This is racy even as today's standards, since television executives logically cater to the likes and dislikes to the largest target market, white Americans. Their television programming, deciding to reflect this target audience, prefers viewing television broadcasts of men in homosexual relationships or women in lesbian relationships. Then they are willing to view a black man in a healthy heterosexual relationship with a white female on TV. There is something grossly wrong with the American psyche that welcomes homosexuality, lesbianism, transvestite babes, movies, sitcoms, and reality shows in their homes under the guise of diversity, while labeling heterosexual relationships between black males and white females as perverse. I said it, and I meant it. Society is quick to accept these behaviors that God has described in Sodom and Gomorrah, he has destroyed nations for these behaviors. But our society today would much rather endorse these behaviors than a healthy heterosexual relationship between an interracial couple. And there's something wrong with that picture. You know there's something wrong with that picture anytime the city of San Francisco has on their ballot fighting over whether or not to circumcise babies, which is a religious practice, which is the right of the parents. And they are trying to take those rights away from parents, whom God has given that right to. The homosexuality and lesbian or the LGBT community in San Francisco, that's who's mainly behind this measure, feels as though these babies have rights, failing to acknowledge and or recognize a couple of facts. One, that parenting is a privilege given by God, which is why two men cannot make a baby and two women cannot make a baby. There's a reason that God does not allow two male elephants to make and come out with an elephant. There's a reason. There's a reason that God destroys Sodom and Gomorrah. There's a reason. But when you fail to acknowledge the behaviors of what God has told you are lustful and low-level behaviors, and society is so willing to accept it, because you must understand that this is a spiritual war. The deviant behaviors that these people are displaying are behaviors that they feel as though, because the mind is controlled by other energy sources other than Jesus Christ for the most part, because most of them don't believe in what is known as traditional religion, and they take spirituality on another level. They're not open to the fact that there are many lights out there, and that there are many lights out there that are false angels of light. There's a line in this spiritual war in which the enemy can cloud your mind and have you thinking those things that are wrong are right. But that is a battle that is not mine to take up. That is not my fight. My fight is unconditional love. Because it is not me who is out to judge, it is God's job. My job is to look in the face of every man and love him unconditionally for who he is, and accept him for who he is. And it's not my job to judge him. For if he displays the Spirit of Christ, then I'm going to embrace him. And his decisions is his battle between him and the Lord, not me and him. And that's where I stand. And for those of you who may not agree with me, we all have that right. But see, I have chosen the line in which I've chosen to stand on. And that is the reason why I stand alone for the most part. It's because the things that I believe in my spiritual walk and on my spiritual path is not things that are believed by most people. You know, they may think that I have a discriminatory behavior. Heck, my children have told me that. But that's not true. It's just the fact that God is black and white. You let your yeas be yeas and your nays be nays. And it's just simple as that. It's not that I lean one way or the other. It's that I stand on the statutes of God. And I have to stand where I stand. And I'm sorry if I can't embrace everyone, but I stand where I stand. The ancient book in the Bible, written by the wisest man in the world, is still ahead of its time by featuring an interracial relationship between a white-skinned Jew and his black-skinned lover. When today's television executives would be fearful to air such a program. In the Song of Solomon, this king tastefully describes several erotic episodes of their relationship that are outside of the scope of our focus on blacks in the Bible. Nevertheless, Solomon gave one last description of his dark-skinned darling that alludes to her mahogany skin. Solomon wrote, "Thy stature is like a palm tree, and thy breasts are like clusters of grapes. I say I shall go up to the palm tree and take hold of the boughs, which is the branches, thereof. Also thy breast shall be as clusters on the vine. So he going to grab the breast. That's what he since there are no white palm trees, we gleaned that she was tall and slender and had breasts like dark mahogany coloring of coconuts that hang from the boughs of the palm tree. Damn, go ahead, Solomon. That's 7 and 8. That tickles my heart. Ironically, instead of completing his thought by comparing her breasts with coconuts, which are brown, he chose to compare the color of her breasts to another fruit, grapes. Since there are no truly white grapes, they are green. We conclude that Solomon's bride had to be of hermetic complexion with dark as mahogany, dark purple grapes. Solomon had his maiden constantly affirms that she was a stunning black beauty. The black maiden in turn describes Solomon saying, "My beloved is white and ruddy." So he had a reddish tone to him. The chiefest among 10,000. His head is as the most fine gold. It was a tan color. His locks are bushy and black as a raven. He had curly black hair. His belly as bright as ivory white. He didn't tan in the stomach. Overlaid with sapphires. He is altogether lovely. This is my beloved. This is my friend. Although she describes herself as black, this Shulamite Solomon as white with a golden tan upon his face. The beautiful black damsel then describes Solomon's skin that was beneath his clothes as bright ivory, which is definitely white. And that's in Songs of Solomon 5 verse 14. She also states that like David his father, Solomon was of a ruddy or reddish complexion. She then describes the locks of his hair being black as a raven. It is interesting that each time this black maiden mentions the color black, she always describes exactly how black. Her description of Solomon's hair is especially interesting, for she says it is as black and bushy. Recall that Solomon's mother was married to a Canaanite, and that she was a Gileadite from the Canaanite territory called Gilo, which will explain Solomon's bushy hair from the descendants of Ham. So Solomon was mixed. He was mixed. In Solomon's eye, he sees his black maiden as entirely different light that she sees herself. He describes her in the song. The joints of thy thighs are like jewels, the work of the cunning workman. The navel is a round goblet which lacks no liquor. Since there are no clear navels, hers was dark as brown liquor. Thy belly is like a heap of wheat, golden brown, set about with lilies, sheets. Thy breasts are like two young rose. Deer and deers are brown, that are twins. Two brown breasts like twins. The breasts are like two young roses that are twins. The neck is deer and deer are brown that are twins. The neck is a tower of ivory white. Theologians cite their differences and perception of foreshadowing how Christians, as the black maiden perceives themselves as sinners, to be despised. While the eyes of God, they are perceived as his redeemed, clean and white. The Shulamite proclaimed, I am a wall, and my breasts like towers. Then was I in his eyes as one that found favor. Songs of Solomon 8 and 10. I gotta stop right here, y'all. It's 26:17. Alright, be blessed, my beloved. We're gonna come back with part 3. Oh, the fairest of all women.